Is
hereby call to order the March 21st, 2024 Town of Frisco Planning Commission meeting. Who's calling roll? Emma, will you please call roll?
Commissioner Connolly here. Commissioner Day is not here yet. Commissioner Forsyth here. Commissioner Lesmes,
Here.
Commissioner Stabile,
here.
Commissioner Kane,
Here.
Commissioner Withrow.
Here. Thank you, Emma. All right, so the January 18th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes were circulated. Are there any comments, corrections, concerns? All right, do we have approval for the meeting minutes? Or a
I'll make a
motion?
motion to approve.
I'll second that. All in favor of approving the January 18th meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Great, and for the record, I'd like to say that Candace Day has joined the meeting, and Andy Stabile will be recusing himself from our agenda item. Oh, and Ira joined, no, he said here. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I said here.
yes. All right.
in the
So
nick
we
of
have
time.
a full commission tonight, but Andy Stabile will be recusing himself, so thank you for joining us, Andy. Have a lovely
Do you
evening.
want Andy to stay?
Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks, everybody. Have fun.
Oh, wait, Andy, not quite yet.
Okay.
I'm going to open the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. So if there's anybody here who would like to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda item, then now is your opportunity. Please step to the podium, state your name and address. If there's anybody online that has public comment, now is your opportunity. Please raise your hand or unmute yourself. I'm seeing none, so I will close the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. Andy, you now are welcome to get off. Have a lovely evening.
Okay, thanks. I'll recuse for this item. We'll hopefully see you at the next meeting.
Great. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks.
All right, we will move on to agenda items. We have one item tonight, which is planning file number MAJ 230007. A final review of the major site plan application for a residential development consisting of 54-unit multifamily development. All units are proposed to be deed restricted affordable units located at 602 Galena Street, lot 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21, block 3, Frisco Town Sub. Applicant Tim Sabo, Alan Guerrero Architecture, on behalf of the town of Frisco, the property owner. I will turn it over to you, Emily, for the staff report.
Thank you, Kelsey and Planning Commission members. Tonight we have a major site plan review. This is the final review for 602 Galena Street. Here is an aerial of the property. The applicant is Alan Guerra Architecture on behalf of the town of Frisco, who is the property owner. The applicant is proposing a 54-unit multifamily residential building with all units proposed to be deed restricted affordable units available for rent at 120% of the area median income. The subject property is zoned Central Core, and while it's owned by the town, the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment operates their existing workforce center there. The properties to the west, south, and east are also zoned Central Core, and the property to the north is zoned residential high density and consists of the Scattered Pines condo development.
Turn the volume up a little bit in the room. Thank you. We just had a request from the audience. Thank you. Yep. No problem. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. All right, here's just an overview of the site plan. Just as some background, the Planning Commission did review the sketch plan of 602 Galena Street on August 17th. There was a prior sketch plan before that, but the one on August 17th is most relevant to the final review of tonight. At that time, commissioners acknowledged and appreciated the rental aspect of the application. Commissioners noted that the architecture appeared repetitive. They were okay with bulk plan encroachment and preferred overnight parking to be on Galena Street rather than Sixth Avenue. This is just a few of the comments, the complete, the minutes were in the staff report for that meeting as well. Here is a project rendering. As a reminder, this project is part of the Affordable Housing Development Incentive Program. So that program encourages the voluntary preservation or development of new affordable housing units or preservation of existing dwelling units for the local workforce. So this is a section in the UDC, and this is achieved through residential development incentives in exchange for deed restricting all of the housing units within the property. So that is one of the requirements, that all units do have to be deed restricted. And for this project, each dwelling unit, or for the code requirements, or to be eligible, each dwelling unit shall be deed restricted with an average AMI not to exceed 120% for the project. The applicant is proposing to utilize this program, so therefore is eligible to receive certain zoning flexibilities as outlined in that code section. All right, starting with dimensional standards, the maximum density in the central core district is 16 units per acre. So for a 0.72 acre site, that would allow for 12 units. However, the applicant is proposing to utilize the affordable housing incentives related to density bonuses and is proposing 54 total units, all of which are to be deed restricted rental units with an AMI of 120%. If the Planning Commission finds that the additional units do not detract from the character of the neighborhood, then the application meets the density standard. For lot coverage, the maximum lot coverage in Central Core District for any use other than 1 or 2 residential units is 100%. The application material show 82.7% of lot coverage meeting the requirements. For setbacks, with the incentives available, the setbacks are shown on screen, and the application is meeting the setback requirements. And then again, for height, there are incentives. For this project, the maximum height is 44 feet due to those affordable housing incentives. The maximum height shown on the site plan is 42.6 feet, meeting the requirements. So one thing I want to touch on, affordable housing developments are exempt from step backs on alley facing facades. However, the development is still required to have a 10-foot step back along the facade that faces 6th Avenue. The code states that step back shall be taken from the 3rd and above floors of street facing wall facades. And the application is not meeting this requirement, but staff has talked to the applicant about making modifications to the facade and believe that modifications can be made. Staff finds that they will be able to meet this requirement with modification and therefore recommends that Planning Commission add a condition of approval stating that the applicant shall be required to meet the 10-foot step back requirement on the western building facade prior to building permit submittal. Moving on to access, and grading and drainage. So this has been reviewed and approved by the town engineer. As far as access, the applicant is proposing access from Galena Street and from 6th Avenue. The 2 accesses create a one-way drive with the entrance on 6th Avenue and the exit on Galena Street. Access meets the requirements for Public Works and Summit Fire. The red line plans in the packet show comments that have been addressed. So those were the referral comments that the applicant first received, and then revisions were made. And this is including the drive aisle width for Summit Fire. That was a big change that was made, was increasing that drive width. The applicant has provided a traffic study based on the size of the project. That is a requirement for a large project such as this. The proposed project anticipates 400 vehicle trips per day on an average weekday. The traffic study states that the proposed residential use is expected to be successfully incorporated into the existing roadway network. We did have a planning commissioner reach out and question why 6th Avenue and Main Street intersection wasn't included in that traffic study. So I did speak with our town engineer this week about that. And while he was originally comfortable with the traffic study, or with the scope of the traffic study based on the provided outcome, he does support adding a condition that would include or create an addendum and require that Sixth Avenue and Main Street intersection be included in the traffic study prior to building permit submittal. So that was something that was not in the staff report, but has come up since you received that. For parking, the affordable housing development incentives provide relief on a number of parking spaces required. This project qualifies for the parking requirements as shown on the slide. Based on the number of proposed units, the project is required to have 44 parking spaces. And then again, or further with the affordable housing incentives, the applicant is proposing that 2 spaces on site be car sharing spaces, which count for 4 spaces each or 8 total. So that brings the total number of on-site spaces to 35. The incentives also allow for 20% of the required overnight parking be accommodated on street frontages contiguous to the property. This allows for 9 spaces to be within the public right-of-way. And that brings the total number of spaces to 44 for the site. Any additional parking shown on the site plan is an added public amenity that is to be constructed by the applicant. Here is just another rendering of the parking. The applicant has provided a parking management plan for the overnight residential spaces, and those have been approved by the town engineer. And so therefore the application is meeting all parking requirements. For bike parking, the applicant is required to have 66 bicycle parking spaces based on the number of bedrooms. The applicant is providing enclosed secure bike spaces or lockers. These lockers are located within the building, and each locker holds 2 bikes. So there are a total of 66 bike spaces, and those are within the hallways. You can kind of see that on that rendering on the screen. And they are also proposing outdoor bike racks as a seasonal amenity, not towards their parking requirements, but they are there on the site plan. This is just a breakdown of what each unit type looks like. The applicant is proposing 21 studios, 21 1-bedrooms, and 12 2-bedrooms. And again, you can kind of see how the bike storage lockers were incorporated into those units. Here we have our landscaping plan. The affordable housing incentives developments are given relief on landscaping requirements. For this project, 29 trees and 17 shrubs are required on site. The applicant is meeting this requirement. They are also proposing additional landscaping within the right-of-way. This has been discussed with staff, and Public Works does support the proposed landscaping in the right-of-way. A revocable license agreement will be required prior to issuance of a building permit to allow those trees.
Do you mind pointing out which ones those are?
They're on the north side of the site, so it's kind of difficult to see just because the rendering's small, but there's a dashed line that shows the property line, and then there are clusters of trees beyond that.
So only on the north side?
Okay. Some of the trees do, like, the shadows will be over, but they are within the site on that south side. The applicant is showing a trash enclosure on the east side of the parking lot that will be consistent with the materials of the building. Staff had recommended a condition of approval that elevations and a letter from a waste management company be provided at time of building permit submittal to ensure wildlife proofing and accessibility from the waste management company. And since the writing of the staff report, the applicant did provide both of these, and staff did find them to meet code. Here we have snow storage. Snow storage shall be provided on site in the amount of 25% of paved surface areas. The site plan requires 3,124 square feet of snow storage, and the applicant is showing 3,137 square feet of snow storage. So this is meeting the quantity. The UDC specifically states that all snow storage areas shall be located lengthwise adjacent to the applicable paved areas. And staff did question whether the application meets the standard based on the highlighted sections on the site plan and questioning whether those would be considered lengthwise. The applicant has provided a supplemental narrative addressing snow storage and requested the opportunity to present their case to the planning commission. So I'll leave that there for now. But if the planning commission does find that the proposed snow storage plan does meet the intent of the snow storage section, then the application meets this standard. Moving on to facade standards, the proposed buildings demonstrate building articulation through the use of at least 2 of the 7 techniques outlined in the UDC. At sketch plan review, the planning commission commented that the architectural elements appear repetitive. The applicant did not modify the facade between sketch and final. However, staff does find that there is some architectural relief from the duplication of units through the use of building materials, and therefore finds that it does meet that standard. Proposed exterior building materials include horizontal siding in sand and vertical siding in a coffee color, as well as split-faced CMU tiles in dark gray. They do have a material sample board. It's on the table over there, so we can pass that around later. The proposed roof forms generally deposit snow away from parking areas and walkways, and the flat roof is augmented by pitched roof elements. The proposed pitches are 9/12, and the application is meeting the building material requirements and the roof requirements. Per the regulations set forth in the affordable housing incentives, bulk plan encroachments are allowed at that ratio you see on the screen. The applicant is showing 1,444 cubic feet of bulk plan encroachments, where up to 1,574 cubic feet is allowed. And so if planning commission finds that the proposed bulk plan encroachments provide substantial architectural relief, then the application meets this standard. So here, that's all I have for the presentation. For recommendations, we'll leave it up for the planning commission to discuss, but should the planning commission determine that the application meets the criteria of approval, staff provided recommended findings in the staff report. And again, should the planning commission determine that the application meets criteria of approval, staff has provided recommended conditions. These were the conditions that were listed in your staff report. You can see the one crossed out is for that trash enclosure elevation. They did provide that, and that was really just to ensure that it was fully enclosed and it was wildlife proof. So staff does find that it's meeting that and therefore cross that out. And then also adding that condition at the bottom after talking to the town engineer with the traffic study and adding that intersection to as an addendum of the traffic study. That is all I have for now. I know the applicant is here, can answer questions. I can answer questions. You did receive a public comment today submitted by Jim Kidder on behalf of the Scattered Pines condo development. So everyone got a physical copy of that for public record.
Thank you, Emily. Questions for staff? April, we'll start with you.
Is Town of Frisco responsible for snow plowing the alley?
Yes,
Okay, and that snow, where does it get stored today? You know?
specifically from the alley. I don't know where Public Works stores all the snow. I do know Main Street snow gets removed. I'd assume some of the adjacent snow does too, but I'm not familiar enough to.
Okay,
So the town state lodge.
so they would be responsible for sidewalks and parking lot, but not anything to do with the alley. Is there a sidewalk right by the alley?
No,
Okay. Okay,
So town storage would continue to be same as that.
yeah, okay. That's all right now.
Jessica, any questions for staff?
Yeah, and sorry, I probably should have should know this, but can you give me just an understanding of the genesis of this project with respect to town code? In terms of the 120% AMI, did this, yeah, I think you're nodding, so.
Yeah. So there were revisions made, and maybe Katie can touch on this a little bit more because it was brought to town council. Town council ultimately approved the 120% with a recent ordinance. And that was from, planning commission recommendation that went to town council, and then it went to town council a couple times, and ultimately they changed that percentage to 120
So
from 100.
it was 100 for this like.
It was,
district,
yes.
and now it's 120.
Yep.
That is what it is,
Mhm.
okay.
But when it was before us, was it 140?
It had gone
Up to 140, right?
And then council changed a lot of pretty much everything that had been proposed got modified a bit, and it was just a clean change in the code to. A development project with an average of 120% AMI would qualify for the affordable housing incentive. So before that, it was 100% AMI. Now, anyone in town, any development that's 100% affordable, up to 120% AMI is average
For rentals.
for rental.
And Katie, can you just
Push your mic closer when you speak, yeah.
for rental and also for ownership?
Same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both under we didn't change, we didn't
Oh.
separate it. The planning commission had asked the council to consider having some differences between rentals and owners, and they didn't.
Got it.
I thought it was 140, but I guess like.
Yeah.
You know more.
I think it meets up with Proposition 123. So
Okay.
then there's the state requirements, but for town code it's.
Thank you. And then feel free to tell me this is a better question for the applicant. When we originally talked about this, was there originally a discussion of LIHTC?
I don't know the funding aspects of the project.
It was in the minutes.
Yeah, so the original development agreement had this property for LIHTC and the other one for more middle income. And then since then that has swapped, and the applicant can provide more
Okay.
information on that.
Great.
But these are still rentals.
Correct, still rentals. Yes, yeah.
And then, I mean, one quick question, you said that like in the facades, the kind of longer length facades.
Mhm.
You said that, planning commission had expressed some concerns that they looked, similar to one another.
Right.
But staff was able to find that they didn't look similar. Could you just go over, I guess, what you?
So looking at the code, it states that they shall provide relief from the duplication of units, right? So the exact imaging, it doesn't give a threshold of how much that is, and it doesn't give those specific 7 techniques that you see in the earlier sections of the codes as far as articulation standards. So given that there is a change in building materials, it does limit the duplication. They're still quite repetitive, but there is some relief from exact mirrored images.
But it's based on the building materials.
Yes.
Okay, so those are different, like horizontal materials from one to the next, or they're?
Right.
Switching it up and adding the blocks on different
Okay.
sections and.
Okay, I might ask the applicant to take me through that.
Mhm.
They're a little different. Okay, and then, if they were just standard conditions, you said in kind of the proposed conditions of approval, meet the requirements from Public Works and Town Engineer, were those all very standard things?
Yep, the ones that are, the applicant shall satisfy the conditions of Frisco Public Works and Town Engineer. Those are just standard. They've already addressed the comments that were given to them, those red line comments. I like to keep those in there just as a reassurance that when it goes in for building permit, that if something needs to be tweaked for
Absolutely.
Excel, for transformers or whatever, that we have that ability.
Yeah, but in terms of like the snow storage and the parking on the street and the management plan, or I guess not parking on the street, the management plan for all of those different things that has been sorted out between town staff. And
Yeah.
staff.
Yep.
Okay,
And primarily, Chris, the town engineer, has been working with the applicant on the logistics of the overnight parking and signage and timing and all of that.
okay. Thank you. No further questions for staff?
Candace, any questions for staff? No. Ira?
Well, Jessica is pretty thorough, but, so I mean, I think I know the answer. There's solar panels shown Are they decorative or are they gonna be there?
I'll let the applicant address that as far as I'm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then, maybe this is for the applicant. And so you talked about the repetition and
Mhm.
so if we look at the rendering, there are basically 2 or 3 materials shown. This is the same sketch that was delivered at the first hearing.
They did not change the facade.
Or materials. They didn't
No.
add or detract any. So this is really all the same as it
Mhm.
was. Just a different interpretation on your part,
Mhm.
okay? And then I'll ask them about parking and solar. Okay,
Any questions for staff?
I guess I had sort of the same question, just I wasn't clear. If there were no changes made, is that typical? I mean, if we have a finding at sketch that this is what we thought and it comes back the same,
I'm-
it seems like it's ignoring the comment.
You,
Okay.
I don't know if there's a question there.
It's not more the same. It's like, I
Yeah,
just wanted to make sure I understood that nothing changed.
the facade has not changed. And looking, as I stated, there's not a certain threshold on relief from duplication, right? It's not like the section before, when it comes to articulation, has a very specific criteria. It needs to meet 4 out of the 7 or 2 out of the 7 techniques. The standard for duplication is more vague, and therefore I can find an interpretation that using and changing building materials, they're not exactly the same each unit. And I left it at that, but planning commission can definitely comment on that.
Okay. I had a couple questions about like the step back in the building and the dumpster enclosure elevations and all that kind of pops up at the last minute.
Sure.
Why wasn't that caught sooner?
So the step back, and it should have been caught sooner. There is an interpretation that, or a misunderstanding, I guess, that because there's 10 feet from the property line, that it didn't have to meet the step back requirement, but reading it word for word, it definitely does have to have a 10-foot step back from the floor below. So the code states from the floor below, not from the setback line, not from the property line. And unfortunately, I caught it late. And so,
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see how that would be confusing.
Yeah, and it is exempt from the alley side. So it's just that one facade. Yep.
Street. For engineering.
6th Ave, yeah.
On the parking. So 2-part question, I'm pretty sure it says in your staff report, and I just double checked it, that the 11 extra parking spaces. Your staff report says they're gonna be constructed and managed by the town
Oh,
for public benefit. So,
I guess I'll need to double check on that. I
I mean,
may be confused.
the additional 11 parking spaces proposed on Galena and the 8 on the 6th Avenue are to be constructed and management by the town for public benefit.
So they will be public parking spaces. My understanding, I assumed that they were going to be constructed by the applicant with the
Okay.
building. I'd have to confirm that, I guess. But as far as,
Okay,
as far as the use of the spaces, they'll be the standard public spaces with standard no parking from 2 AM to 6 AM.
right, because if they're gonna be, there's 11 extra parking spaces that are gonna be constructed by the town, then really the project shouldn't get credit for it. Right, but if it's the other way around, then I want to wonder why you're providing extra parking. So anyway. And then you clarified that the landscaping in the right of way where that was, I wasn't clear on that. And my last question is, what happens if the traffic study is amended? They study the intersection of 6th and Main, and there's improvements that need to be made. Do they automatically have to make those improvements, or how does that work?
There will have to be some sort of, reaction to that. I guess I don't have the exact answer to that on what that means. I don't know.
I guess I'm wondering
It's-
if somehow we need to capture that in a condition of approval or something, so, okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mm.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
I have one other question. So once the building is constructed and it's under the management team, can the AMI requirements change or are they always held to what they are set now?
There's a deed restriction.
Yeah.
Okay, so deed restriction there.
Mhm.
If they want to change them, the process would be to come back to town council and.
Right, well, ultimately, they would have to meet that for the overall building, that there's an average AMI of 120%. So we'd have to, if they want to change something, they'd have to, like, that would be a modification.
Kelsey, I have one more question. Sorry, this is my main question that I've got to ask. Can you talk a little bit about when this was here at Sketch, we had a conversation about why is the building on the south side and parking lot on the north side? And there was somebody in the public that said, you should maybe think about switching that. And I'm still like sort of torn about putting parking lots on the north side, especially when we have snow storage that doesn't really function. There was no discussion about that, I guess, in your staff report or anywhere, and I didn't know what happened there. Was
There
there
were
any
no
more?
changes or discussion to that, but I'll let.
We asked when there was a comment like that, it was like easier, the grading was easier or something for the
There was
building or
something about
something like that.
There was something around, we were gonna ask Public Works again, like, was there any way around accessing from the alley? And I see Megan nodding, so maybe I'll let Steph
Yeah.
answer. Okay. All right,
Any other questions? I have no questions. Mine have been asked. So at this time, we'll turn it over to the applicant. If you'd like to step to the podium, I think it's Megan presenting. So state your name.
Hello, Planning Commissioner Donna. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Staff, thanks for working with us on this. My name is Megan Teston. I work for Norris Design and I'm representing the applicant. Neil Drobenair is here with NHP and also this is a partnership with the town of Frisco. So I know we've seen a lot of this. You can go to the next slide, Emily. But just a little bit on background on, thank you, by the way, on needs. We're really looking at almost a 3,000 additional unit need for affordable housing within our county. And I just want to bring that up again as a reminder to the importance of this project and putting affordable housing where people can actually live and work and commute all at the same time. A little bit about NHP Foundation. They're a non-for-profit foundation that does affordable housing exclusively all over the country. They have a mission and values and a vision, and this is what they do. Not only do they develop it, but they also long-term manage properties as well. And they do kind of neat things like give people credit, help them build credit for paying their rent on time. They'll issue statements like that for banks to hopefully help people with upward mobility. So just want to make sure that we kind of keep that in mind in the back of our mind. And I know that some of the planning commissioners haven't heard the spiel, so I'll keep moving quickly. But as I said, NHP also is working with local stakeholders and they're in a partnership with the town on this project to be affordable housing in perpetuity. Just a quick on-site picture of the current site. And then, oh, I was going way faster. Yeah, you can keep going. Try not to take too much time on some things that a lot of you have heard already. I think this one's really interesting too, though. The site context on here, if you look at the 1/2 mile and 1 mile radius, we're really locating housing in the heart of town and also at the heart of transit within the county, which is one of the neat things that Frisco has to offer in terms of being able to be truly mobile without the use of an automobile. A little bit closer zoom into where we are. You can see 6th Avenue, Main Street, the proximity to both Pioneer Park and Triangle Park, and also the kind of transfer in between the commercial frontage on Main Street and a more residential community in the back. By back, I mean north. Here's a quick site plan for us. It shows the landscape as well as the parking and the building. I'll just really quickly kind of talk a little bit more about the location of the building and the parking lot. This was discussed after that last planning commission and that comment. Really what happens is the grading on the site and the traffic circulation is much more desirable from an engineering perspective to have traffic coming off of Galena and 6th rather than the alley in 6th as a terms of circulation. And it works better with the site grading as well. So those are kind of the main factors for keeping it that way. We also felt that, yes, we're shading our own parking lot, but at least this way the building is not casting shade onto our neighbors to the north. Snow storage, I just wanted to kind of clarify a little bit about snow storage and the interpretation of the code. We feel we meet snow storage on site for the requirements. We have 25% of the snow storage for all paved surfaces, including walkways and parking provided on site. All of the snow storage area meets the 8-foot widths. And it is not shown in the right of way or on adjacent properties. And snow storage is adjacent to all sidewalks. I think that we got a little hung up on the word lengthwise, which might be left over from when you really read the code, it almost kind of says you're going to plow everything. That's not necessarily the case in practice. So we feel in practice that areas adjacent to hardscape along walkways are appropriate for holding snow. And it meets the overall intention of the snow storage, which per quote is dimension of the snow storage area must be adequate to serve the snow storage purpose. So I didn't really say it, but the yellow is all the hardscape and the navy is the snow storage. Parking. This is, Lena, kind of to your question, the 9 visitor spaces on the street will be dedicated to this project. The additional 11 and then the 9 on Galena will be developed as a community benefit, but will be maintained by Public Works.
Megan, can you clarify, would those be constructed by the applicant or the town? Do you know? Sorry.
I
I think that was kind of.
That was your question. I'm pretty sure that it would be constructed by that. Yes. I let Neil answer that.
So the other thing that is like that we need to talk about with that is we're realigning Galena Street with this application. And this is per Chris McGinnis in the engineering department. So I think there's a lot of work that's happening to this street simultaneously, and obviously some of it's going to be paid for by the town, and I'm not sure how all that's going to mesh and how they're going to break apart the numbers. And so this is something that's going to have to be discussed further.
That's it. Thank you. That's a
Yeah.
I'm not in those meetings. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne to talk a little bit more about architecture.
Okay. Suzanne Allen Sabo with Allengare Architecture. I guess haven't gone through these slides, so I'm not sure about the order, but I suppose we could start, since we're looking at some elevations here with, oh, sure. Thank you. Awesome. So, we will start with, the repetitive facade, since we're looking at the facades right here. So as you can see from this view, we don't feel that this is repetitive, and because of the material changes. So you can see we've got 2 stories of stone on that end element, then it steps down to about a 4-foot wainscot, then it steps up and around, and this may or may not be stone. I think right now we actually are switching this up to a split face CMU. But anyway, whether it's stone or CMU, that that material, that heavy material is stepping up and down on that facade. And therefore reducing that repetitiveness. And if we go to the next elevation, you can see the same thing. And also I wanted to bring up that, you know, as these buildings wrap, you never see a building straight on like you do in those elevations. The corners are very different. You know, we're stepping those corners down. You know, we've got entry elements. We got all kinds of things happening on the corners that are different on each end. So that reduces the repetitiveness. And then if we do look at the straight on elevation here, well, it's hard to see on this, but if you could see this closely, you would see that even amongst the gable elements, for instance, the far left gable element has narrower windows, and then and fewer windows, and then those center ones have more windows. And so we're varying the windows within that facade as well. And also I wanted to bring up, this is workforce housing and we do have 3 unit types. So there's only so much we can do. But I agree, I did not change this elevation because I didn't necessarily agree with that comment last time. So, sorry. And then let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so regarding, as you're kind of looking at these elevations, and you can see like that elevation is so different than the side elevations or the other end. But if we go to there, yeah. So talking about, bulk plane, we did come up with a new option for stepping that 3rd floor back because we were completely unclear that we thought that from the property line, if our building was 10 feet back from the property line, we were good to go. We could just go up 3 stories. We didn't understand that that 3rd story, no matter what, has to step back. So from 6th Avenue, that was an area where we had about half of our bulk plane encroachments. So when we relooked at that, once we found out that that was an issue, we actually pulled the lower 2 floors out 3.5 feet and the upper floor back 6.5 feet to get that 10-foot step. And therefore we almost eliminated, as you can see here, our bulk plane encroachments on 6, which eliminated about 450 cubic feet of our bulk plane encroachment. So it actually solved 2 things with one comment. So let's see what's next on that. So this is just showing what we did to the plans and elevations to adjust to that 3rd floor step back comment. So if you could flip through the floor plan. So here you could see on the left side, if you flip back and then forward again, you'll see through that slide. If you flip the slide back one.
Oh, I did.
And then forward again, you'll see on that left side, it steps back.
Mhm.
And then if you flip forward again, you can see it on well, this is just the roof, but then again, oh, these are the unit types. Flip again and we'll see the elevations, I think. Well, somewhere. Maybe I'm missing the elevations that have the step back, but anyway, oh, yeah, so there we go. So I think we have a good solution. It was pretty painless actually, to that 3rd floor step back. Can we go forward again? And I just want to show you guys the, dumpster enclosure that we drew. Just kind of, the architecture is similar to the building. It's got that wrapping metal piece. And then, is that it? I think that's it. So let me just quickly see if I touched on everything here. Oh, we do have that, the comparison, you know.
That's right after.
That's right after the
flip
blank
them.
slide. Okay. So last time you guys had asked me, that's the 3rd floor step back, but anyway, keep going. Oh, so, okay, go back one. So last time you guys had asked me, someone had said, gosh, this looks just like 101 West Main. And so I was like, well, it's really our computer program, I think. So I just want to show you guys 101 West Main is on the left. It's in the brown. It's an L shape in plan. Galena Street is very linear in plan. And then if we flip to the elevations, what we have currently on the upper drawing is West Main. And it's kind of tans, browns, has timber accents with steel. It's more kind of traditional looking. And then on the bottom is the Galena Street elevation, which is a little more contemporary. It's kind of cleaner lines. And it's more grays and you know, light grays and dark grays. So I think, and some browns, but I think they look pretty different actually. So I just wanted to show you that comparison because that comment did come up last time. And then basically, let me just quickly go through the changes based on the referral comments. So on when we sat down with the fire department, they asked us to have a 20-foot access width. So we widened the access drive from 18 feet to 20 feet to accommodate the fire trucks. We added a fire control room, hydrants. Excel asked us to move the transformer, so we did that to the corner of the lot. And we moved the electric meter bank on the building, to be on that west elevation. And have, the drip line, requirements that Excel requires. And we meet those now. Engineering, I think we're meeting all the, comments from the engineering department. We worked closely with Chris McGinnis. And, per what I talked about earlier, we are shifting the center of Galena Street per Chris McGinnis to the center of the right of way. So it shifts it pretty significantly. And so, anyway, I'm not sure how all that's getting done, but Chris wanted that done. And then the bike lockers, if anybody wants to see the specs, we've got a manufacturer that we're working with, on those bike lockers and, in the hallways. And bridge heights were way under, I don't know if there's a comment there. That's it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Suzanne and Megan. Questions for that, Lena?
I'm going first. So what you showed tonight, the step back, that wasn't in the packet.
No,
so
that staff has not seen that.
Okay, so, okay. And same thing for the dumpster. Technically, that wasn't.
I
in
had seen, yeah, it wasn't in the packet, but we had been emailed the dumpster elevations in a letter from a waste management company earlier this week.
Okay, but for the purposes of what we're approving, I feel like either we don't need a condition for both or we need a condition for both. Not one or the other.
For what?
For the, you have a condition around the step back and another condition around the dumpster elevations. So I'm just, so since there's like, what we're seeing here is not actually what was in the packet.
Approval, I would think,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
I just wanted to show you that it worked and.
That it,
you know,
yeah, you
yeah.
figured it out.
And it was her, you flashed it, was on her Emily's PowerPoint, when she had the recommended conditions, she had done a strike through, but it was a thin line. Through the dumpster one, to note that she recommended that come off of those conditions.
Yeah.
She didn't want to just take it off without the commission recognizing that she reviewed the dumpster enclosure ahead of time. The third floor step back, as Emily noted, is not step penance and advantageous.
Okay. Got it.
Oh, Rita, you had asked about the location of the building on the site.
Yeah.
So the site kind of slopes south to north, right? And so we're pushing that building into the grade. And if we push it to the other side, it becomes much taller visibly. Like if we push it into the grade, it's buried more. And it just worked a lot better. And if we push it to the other side, we have to have that 10-foot step back. Because from the alley, we don't, but from the street, we do. So those were the two reasons why it is where it is.
Are you filling the site?
No.
No, you just,
Not
okay.
really. I mean, there might be a little bit because it does, it's sloping across the site, right? So there might be a little bit on between the building and kind of floating it out there, but we're basically coming off the street at the street grade, right?
And that retaining wall that's in the alley, is that going away? Or is that staying?
The one that's existing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going away.
Anyway.
But our building is going to be retaining a little bit.
The
on that
retaining
side.
that,
Mhm.
okay. Got it. Can you go back to, I think last time we had talked about, and maybe Megan, this is a question for you, but we had talked about that sidewalk along Galena, this sort of like has like a jagged, it's not
Yeah.
straight.
We even know.
You did? I haven't
At the
seen,
intersection?
yeah.
Back to that maybe.
It's,
Emily, would you mind screen sharing? Thank you.
This corner right here.
Yeah, that corner. I'm just wondering, and I saw there were some referral agency comments about what's happening in those corners. Is that landscaping? Is that, what is it?
Is the brick that you see on Main Street and the
Oh.
application of all the Main Street bulb outs is what will be repeated in that bulb out.
Okay,
So it's sidewalk surrounded by brick, so it's a differential, but you know, for all practical purposes, you can walk across all of it and remove snow easily.
is it gonna have the ADA ramp?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. For the snow storage that's being proposed, like right next to the building on Sixth Avenue, is that the purpose of that to put the snow that you're clearing off of the sidewalk?
Primarily, yeah.
And so is that gonna be an easement for the town?
No, we think it is going to help meet our snow storage and that small yellow kind of entrance walkway where you move that.
Yeah.
Also, just from a practical standpoint, should you need to bring snow over there, you could.
I think when we nodded, we were talking about the sidewalk that's in front of the building on Galena. So shoveling around the corner and storing it there, not for the street. I'm sorry, the street
Okay.
sidewalk. No, they wouldn't store that there.
Okay. And then if I remember correctly, what we saw in terms of the parking on Galena before was diagonal parking, is that right? So now it's head-in parking, no?
It's,
It's
Was it
been
always
headed.
head-in parking?
yeah,
Remember,
it's
okay.
been diagonal in the parking lot.
Okay. So how are you shifting the street towards the north or towards the north?
So,
Here's,
yeah, do we have a drawing of that anywhere that shows that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can look.
I'm not sure if it's on a slide, but I
It's
have.
not on a slide, sorry. Right now, the Galena Street as it currently is, does not follow the median line of the right of way. So it does, when you're looking at it at the north east corner.
There you go. So the dark gray and the light gray, you can see
Light gray.
new,
Okay,
you know what I mean?
got it, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
yeah, I'm pulling it up too. My computer's just slow.
And then my last question has to do with the materials. And I mean, I guess I can follow your argument that it's not really repetitive and I get it, but also the CMU is gonna be beautiful textured CMU, right?
Yeah, it's split face. It's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cause I hear CMU and I
No,
think
no, no,
like,
it's- yeah.
Okay,
yeah. It's kind of like what Frank Lloyd Wright used to use and stuff on a lot of his buildings. He did different
Is it
things with
on there?
CMU. Well, I mean, this is similar, but it's not quite exactly. We're different, but, yep. But they have to price it still too, so we'll see.
and possibly a terrible question, but, cause you're the designer and I'm definitely not, but could you do something in the middle of the building to like sort of, since there's like, feels like, how many? Could you put up an elevation? Thank you, Emily.
Sorry, my computer is not liking these large PDFs right now. But we'll go back to this one.
Yeah, like that one. So the repetition, right, is the brown sections that sort of seem similar across the building. I just don't know, like, walk me through why there's no reason to, accent something in the middle a different way so that it's not so repetitive. Or,
I mean, I think it looks fine the way it is. I think the bases are super different, and so that breaks it up visually. But, if someone wanted that centerpiece totally different, I mean, we could do a flat roof on that piece instead of a gable. But I honestly believe this looks better than a flat roof would on that, because it would, it'd still be the 3-story element.
yeah, definitely not a flat roof, but I guess I don't want to play designer, so I trust you.
Okay.
Okay, those are my questions.
Ira, questions for the applicant?
I'm just following up with Lena. I hear what we're talking about. It's not exactly repetitive, but it kind of, if you blur your eyes and the corners definitely have a lot of power. That's fine. But once you get to the middle, if you forget the materials, the windows are stacked or the gables are proportional. There is a repetition to it, but I should have prefaced, I'm really excited to see something happen for our housing needs. So on one hand, I'm not gonna speak too loud. And on the other, I see where it gets a little repetitive, but I can live with it.
Gotcha.
Question, yes. Thank you. You're welcome. So am I to understand the parking that I assume, because we went through this conversation, that you're going to be building for a town benefit on the outside of the property. Some of that might be overnight parking or some of it will be overnight parking.
I'm gonna let her answer that question.
9 of it will be overnight, 9 spaces.
And it's my understanding, I think you also repeated that the town will be maintaining street parking.
Correct.
And then by default, you're going to be taking care of snow removal for all interior sidewalks and everything else.
Correct.
And then one of the beauties of the project is the single ownership. It's,
Right.
so is there on-site contacts for the town to be able to reach management here? How does that work?
I'll let Neil answer that one.
Oh, Neil, we haven't seen you for a while.
I've just been sitting quietly, letting the women who actually know what's what tell you what. We intend, yeah, obviously to have this building and 101 West Main and management between them. So at any one point, there might not be someone on site, but there will always be someone available, both for tenants to call and for the city and for the town to call if there is a problem. It will be professionally managed. There will be a professional manager, approximately half the time. And maintenance, again, likely half time and a quarter, half time, with them also serving at 101 Main as a unified staff.
And then you probably heard me ask before, those solar panels, are they just a drawing element or are they installed?
We intend to install them. We did a preliminary solar study that showed that we could do solar here. We do solar on almost all of our buildings, and we'd like to do it here because it does not only help the environment, but it also contributes to lower utility costs for our tenants, which contribute to affordability.
So the drawings clearly showed a bank of electric meters. Are you gonna not use any gas? I didn't see any gas shown anywhere. It's an all-electric building?
All electric.
Yeah.
Yeah, all electric.
Nice. And I think that takes care of my questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Neil, well,
At one point, and I do know that, you know, we've talked pretty extensively about the repetition, but while I do agree with Suzanne that we've done a lot of things to avoid repetition, the unfortunate truth is the more different things you do in a building, the more expensive it makes a building, which means either it's less affordable or the town would need to come up with more money. And we've been trying to balance those two things by avoiding as much repetition as we can, but by keeping the building as simple as we can. As Suzanne pointed out, the building is built around the units, and there are only 3 unit types, which is a major factor in making this building affordable. And that's not something that we have really the ability to change.
Thank you.
Neil, I have one quick question while you're up there. Can you talk up a little bit about the AMIs? I mean, they're all at 120%, which is the highest it can possibly be. There's no averaging, there's no range. I guess my question is why?
I think, we begin with, we sort of view this as part and parcel of a larger plan that includes 101. And in 101, we have from 30 to 80% of AMI, and here up to 120. Our expectation is that on the 2 bedrooms, it will be, since it's not LIHTC, people can share them. You could have 2 people at 60, someone at 80, and someone at 40. And we're not going up, even though the restriction is at 120. We are actually discounting the rents off of 120, several $100s.
Gap between 80. You
I mean,
said,
but the real answer, is up. And we had this conversation with the town council, is we can do any AMIs we want. But, when you start stepping down the AMIs, you start increasing the amount of public contribution that you need in order to make the building work. And because of that, we set the rents at a maximum of 120% of AMI. Actually, as I said, we backed it off from one, so it's not exactly at a 120, it's probably at 110, 115. But it was a combination of looking at it in contribution with 101 and with the fiscal realities that we had with the subsidies that were available to build the building.
Okay.
Candace, questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have a couple and I think I've been skirted a little bit, but going back to snow storage, so the snow storage shown in the packet had like 3 yellow boxes, and then in the slides had some other navy ones in other areas. Is all of that snow storage?
Yes, all of that's in storage.
Actually, just as a clarification, this snow storage with the yellow highlights in the plan or in the staff report were just the highlighted areas that were questionable, whether they were lengthwise adjacent. There is additional snow storage provided, just not highlighted.
Perfect, thank you, that helps. And then you guys answer that, that's for sidewalks. Is there snow storage, does that cover the snow storage for the parking, including the town parking in these other?
Yes, yeah, we meet all of the snow storage requirements on site.
Perfect, thank you. All of you for answering that. And then I have one more, if you could pull up the parking thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I know I think we got to like 37 spaces. That sounds right. And I think last time we talked to you guys, or it was mentioned that you guys have a parking plan. Part of those 37 spaces, I think 2 are EV and 2 are car sharing. So in my mind, that's hopefully at least 2 people are driving EVs, but in my mind, those 4 are like not people who own their own car necessarily. So if you explain the parking plan as like 37 spaces with 54 units. Is that?
Q code, but I think it's also been our experience as an owner of affordable housing that the affordable housing population owns less cars. And one of the reasons that we really like the site in, out of the entire county, this is the site that is the most transit accessible. And, not everyone at 120 is going to have a car. And we certainly think that those who don't will view this as the right place to live while still providing parking for folks who do need it. If that answers.
Yeah. My last non-question, but comment is, thank you for what you're doing, because this is a huge benefit to the community, and like this many units of affordable housing in this location, like you were saying, makes me very excited and appreciative of all of you.
I appreciate that, but I would also like to share that appreciation with the town staff and the town council, who really are our partners in doing this, and there's no way this would happen without them.
Jessica, questions for the applicant?
Great, thanks. Kind of a follow-up to one of Candace's questions. So you said that, the affordable housing population owns less cars, kind of in your experience managing affordable housing. Where are those communities that you have experience managing affordable housing?
We have approximately 10,000 units across the United States, from the East Coast all the way through Louisiana, Texas, and north. So it's a pretty diverse group of properties, including incomes from, 0, up to 120% of AMI.
Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to kind of harp on any of the concerns we have, because, overall, this is something we want to see, just kind of asking those questions that are, I think, appropriate questions, kind of. And with the parking, if it meets code, it meets code, and honestly, that's the end of the story on that. But when you are going up to 120, you're kind of getting at a different population. It's not that we're talking about that 80%, 60% AMI that really is probably not going to have a car and relying on transit at 120%. You are in transit. So that's kind of maybe more of a follow-up question where we're at is, it meets the code. Do you all want to see affordable housing? Are there contingencies that the town and this applicant have discussed, if we, and I get it, hey, if you have 2 cars, you don't live here, you find somewhere else to live. But if it is kind of becoming a thing where, oh, actually the snow storage is taking that one lot, and instead of these being overnight visitor parking, people are parking there and they're on the street, have we talked about those contingencies so that we don't set a precedent that we don't want to move forward with?
So NHP, I'll let Neil address that one. We primarily through Lauren with NHP, what they have kind of told the town and assured us that some of those contingencies are through having their property management company and limiting the amount of cars that people can even have through the permitting process. Not tickets in a bad way, but permitting tickets to have a vehicle. But I'd rather NHP address that too.
Yeah, I think that this sort of goes to a comment that someone said before, that they were less concerned here just because there's one owner and not 54 owners. Because at the end of the day, if we're wrong about the parking, it's a problem that we own, because we own the property, and we'll have to find a way to fix it one way or another. I can't say we've gone and had contingency plans for that, because we don't think we'll need them, but at the end of the day, we own all the problems. And we're a long-term owner. We're financing this with long-term financing with the town. And hopefully that can give you some sense of assurance.
Great. I guess just a question, you said that you were gonna reduce the AMIs kind of below that 120%, you're looking at 100.
The rents are not at the exact, they're sort of went to 120, then we back the rents off, so they're a little bit below that.
And are you committing to that?
We're committing to the restriction at 120 and starting the rents where they. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
And they'll be working out those details in a modified development agreement with town council over the next couple of weeks, so.
No more questions, thank you.
April, questions for the applicant?
Yeah, Emily, do you mind pulling up the new step back elevation? I just had a question around that look of it. Is that an actual balcony now, or is that just a flat roof?
So that's a flat roof, just because, and it has an interior drain, just in order to make it work with the code and everything. A shed roof wasn't really necessarily going to work that great in that location. And it's definitely not a deck, because that's super expensive, so. And it's just off a couple bedrooms, so it just doesn't make sense financially to make it
Did
a
that
deck.
cause you to adjust the square footage on that floor for those units?
Yes, so the upper floor reduced square footage, and the middle floor and the lower floor increased square footage. And the overall square footage went up slightly.
And a separate question around the bike parking. There's been mention of outdoor bike parking and that's seasonal, but where would that be placed? Because I haven't seen it on any of the plans.
Sort of, I glanced over it. It is placed, you can see, thank you, Emily, right there.
Okay, and just a little bit out of our purview, but like, do the doors into the building lock? And do you have to have an access point to get in, or is it open?
We always have controlled access.
Okay. I think that's it for me.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Just one follow-up on, is the bike parking is like essentially the storage unit, there's not like an additional storage unit, correct?
That's for in the hallways?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really cool because you can store skis in there or 2 bikes fit in there. So it's sort of
Vertically or.
they're horizontally, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, one more question or 2 more questions. Are you, is part of your model to include things like parking fees?
No.
You don't charge for parking,
Okay. Because that's come up in other affordable housing developments in Summit County. And so we're all sort of thinking and talking about that because it's another way of making it unaffordable, especially if you're starting out with not having enough parking. So I hope that you don't need to institute any kind of parking fees.
Yeah, I mean, the way we look at it is if we're saying something is 120% of AMI or 100% of AMI, you take 30% of that, and whether that's through rent or parking fees or any other fee, anything that's really sort of essentially mandatory, like utilities, then you're no longer really affordable. So, for example, in our rent calculations, we start at the rent limit and then we subtract the utility allowance, for example, to set the actual rent.
Okay. And to be clear, that elevation that we were looking at, is that the step back? That is the already included the step back?
So it should say step back on it. No.
Go to. Like that one, yeah, is that one? This,
Yeah.
you've already done, okay. So that's what it looks like.
Yeah, it just has kind of a flat roof that'll have a central drain on it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Are you good?
yes, thank you.
My question is, both these projects were gonna originally be LIHTC, correct?
Initially, yeah.
What was the reasoning to change the financing on this?
It came out of conversations with CHFA, the Colorado Housing Finance Agency, and we thought one of these projects at 50% would be more competitive than 2, and that has to do with, these buildings are actually quite expensive. Building here is more expensive than anywhere else in the states here in the state. And the amount that they allocate in tax credit is limited. So as you expand the building and the cost, the amount of subsidy gets lower per unit, which means you have to start targeting a higher income. And it just, at a certain point, just didn't work.
Got it.
So, in conversations with the town, there was a desire to also do incomes that we weren't going to be able to address in LIHTC. And that's how this came about.
I have no other questions. Most of mine have been addressed, so thank you, Neil, Megan, Suzanne. At this time, I'll open up this public comment portion of this agenda item. So if you are here in the chambers or online and want to make public comment on this agenda item, now is your opportunity. A couple guidelines, just please step to the podium, state your name, address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes if you could. So if there's anybody here, I'll start with the chambers that wishes to make public comment. Now is your time.
Like I have a short straw. Hi, my name is Curtis Weller. I live at 601 Galena. I'm a fairly new resident there, a full-time resident. And there's 8 units there in that complex, 2 buildings, 4 units each. So Emily, one of my neighbors had sent you the email today outlining some comments and thoughts. I'm not sure if that got passed around.
Yes, we do all have that.
I guess foremost, we were a little concerned that the date on the document that was originally distributed, the presentation was the first week of January. And here we are in March, and we were just being notified that that material was available for review. So we've had a very short window to think about this, share our thoughts, try to pull our neighbors together and express our concerns or ask, to formulate some questions. So this was our best shot at a last minute collection of thoughts and questions. So I don't know if it's appropriate to review those or those get reviewed separately, and then we'll get some comments on those, or.
Yep, so typically how this works, and maybe Kelsey can go through this, we go through public comments and then I'll be writing down notes and I can address questions after the fact, after everyone provides comment.
Yeah, so it's not really kind of a dialogue. It's you expressing your concerns, comments, questions, and then as we see fit, we'll answer your questions. And certainly we all take public comment very seriously. We thank you for your time and we believe that what you have to say is very important. So it is weighed in our decision on your public comment.
So most of the discussion here seems to be centered on the structure itself and that immediate property. And very, some comments were mentioned about the changes in Galena. Most importantly, we're concerned how that affects us, because it's taking away some of the current easement, and we get it. It's town property. It's your right to do that, but it's bringing the road closer to our properties or to our buildings. We're concerned about overflow, given the parking concerns that have all been mentioned here. We're a convenient across the street parking lot that was built for the purpose of our units. But we're a convenient space that could be overflow. We're hoping that doesn't happen, because then we'll have a management company on speed dial to address that. So we're looking for the town to hopefully mitigate some of that with signage. There's no parking in those streets now. We're hoping that doesn't occur. You have that memo.
Which we did read the memo, so we have read this.
We echo the concerns that were mentioned earlier about the traffic study and the need to include 6th and Main. Right now it can be difficult for that whole neighborhood back there, even beyond us. That's really our most efficient way to get to Summit Boulevard. And so we have to use that intersection, and it can be difficult at times to egress to Summit Boulevard through that intersection. Don't know, there's some other owners on the line here, Jim, Joan, if you guys have some comments. What else? I can't think of things specifically. So as this evolves and we have more questions or concerns, as we have more time to look at this, do we have the opportunity to forward those and have a dialogue? We
Yep.
do?
Yep, you have,
The planning commission, if they make a motion tonight, then that project is approved potentially with conditions. That would be the end of the public comment necessarily on this development and the site plan. However, if during construction or implementation of the project, if it moved forward and they were not meeting that plan, or there were traffic concerns, parking concerns that weren't meeting the requirements of the town, then you would bring them up to town hall. But as far as public input on this site plan itself, if it's voted on tonight, that's kind of the end of the public giving comments to the planning commission. So
We do have some concerns. I mean, we're hoping they'll do what's in our best interest as well when they're grading and realigning the road and within the town codes and requirements. So not being intimate with those, we just hope they'll do the right thing. So, okay.
Thank you, Curtis. We appreciate your time tonight. Are there additional members of the public that would like to make comment at this time?
Hello? Oh, Joan.
Is- Is that
Joan is,
someone else?
yep, Joan is online.
All
Her
right,
hand
Joan.
is raised.
If you'd like to state your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Joan Scott. I own a unit across the street at Scattered Pines, as Curtis just commented. I'm one of the owners over there. And I just have a few things that I kind of wanted to chime in on, I guess. And I want to first just preface my first comment with the fact that I'm all in favor, and I know the great need that we have for the affordable locals housing. And I realize this is probably a train that cannot be stopped, but I do want to just express how I feel very strongly that this is a development in an inappropriately placed location and an inappropriate density for our quaint town core. I've maintained all along, and I think in a past meeting, I conveyed that, in my opinion, it would have been much better in a open area up there by the library and hospital area that still is in connection with the town core by bike paths, but yet it is more open. Right now, this encroaches on our property greatly, especially by moving the street northward. Like Curtis had said, I guess I'm just chiming in that, you know, while it is city town property, it encroaches. Our open space now will be eliminated greatly. So that is very uncomfortable. And I feel like our association is greatly impacted as compared to the other housing developments that are surrounding the 602 Galena development. So while, you know, I know that this is something that is really being pushed, it really would have been nice to have been included in a neighborly way. I know that this is something that the town of Frisco pushes, especially with short-term rental owners and their guests. There is a good neighbor policy and a code of ethics that I feel unfortunate that we were not made aware, or at least in a, you know, kind gesture to express some of this development going on, or maybe get our input, as well as input from other, you know, to the west and to the east, those developments. So that's one portion. And I guess I would like to say, as a designer, that's my profession, I have to disagree with the comment tonight about saying that she didn't change the building because she didn't think it was repetitive. In my opinion, it's really quite repetitive, and I would like to see it be more along the lines of the photos that were shown of 101 West Main. There's a lot more design elements and variation in plane, and this one, 602 Galena, feels like a massive rectangle, 3 stories high. With very little variation. There's no denying that there are 5 repetitive pointed columns, you know, on the building, and no disrespect, but it would be, I think, very nice for it to be reevaluated and try to come up with some design details that help break up that repetitive nature of it. And I would like to, I guess, just ask a question, if I could, that reevaluation of the intersection of 6th and Main, that is a really critical area. And I'm so glad that somebody at the town, I guess, asked for that to be evaluated, because it is so difficult as it is now to get out from 6th, turning on to Main, especially turning left. You can sit there and sit there and sit there. So I'm so glad and thank you for evaluating that. Is that going to, I mean, I assume that's going to take a while to do. So I'm a little concerned. You're saying that this might be just approved tonight. And so that wouldn't even, the outcome of that study wouldn't matter. That's a question.
We'll get to that in our discussion, Joan. So thank you for that question.
Okay, then one other thing, will you be letting people know when ground will be breaking on this? Because like I said, I'm sure this is a train that's not going to be stopped.
The town can definitely keep the neighbors informed. Obviously, if this project moved forward, the first step would be demolition of the existing building and then putting in utilities and things well before any construction would occur. But yes, I think the town can definitely commit to being a good neighbor and keeping you apprised of when applications are submitted to the building department.
Okay, well, that would be greatly appreciated. And, you know, the sooner the better, rather than sending out a postcard to us that, you know, takes quite a while to be received. So thank you.
Thank you, Joan. We will move to other online comments. If you are here from Scattered Pines, though, please do keep in mind, we have the memo, we've read it. We don't need it reread to us. So if you have additional comments outside of the memo from Scattered Pines, then please do share those with us, but we do have these current comments. So who's next online?
Jim.
Jim, if you'd like to unmute yourself, state your name, address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, and my name's Kathy Kidder, Jim's wife and owner at 601 across the street at Scattered Pines, and I'm currently the treasurer. I just wanted to at least comment and say thank you to Emily or Kelsey, whoever's going to kind of respond to Jim's and really our collective email and concerns. So thank you, Emily, for at least responding to that initial email. Wanted to at least really understand kind of the process going forward. And, you know, to Joan's point, how do we keep in the loop on kind of progress? And, you know, some of us do short-term rentals, so we do need to keep apprised of that because given the construction and the, I guess, limitations and things that might be happening on Galena Street, we do definitely want to keep apprised. And again, participate and support you guys as you go through this so that we can have minimal impact to the owners at Scattered Pines.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate your comment. Next, I'm going to butcher that name. Apple, maybe? Sorry if I said that wrong. Please unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello there. My name is Ann Pyle. Those are my that's my
Oh,
initials.
okay.
So thank you for allowing me to speak for all of 3 minutes. I was the neighbor at the August meeting who requested the swap of the buildings being facing the alley rather than our street, rather than the other way around with the parking in our street. And I know it's a moot point. However, I can't help but point out that Galena Street is not a through street. So you are, however the traffic engineers figured this out, you're no doubt are going to be causing a great amount of congestion because Galena basically, as you move east, it peters out, turns left and stops. And so you're going to have, there will be a lot of traffic that is going to be congested right there in front of our condos. In the other direction, Galena ends basically at First Avenue and then turns left. So why the parking was not allowed to be put against the alleyway is really astounding to me. However, I guess that ship has sailed. So what I requested at the meeting back in August was that if you all did not see fit to allow that swap to happen and we can't alleviate the traffic problems and the parking problems that we will undoubtedly have, is if you could possibly assist us by providing some kind of landscaping so that at least we are not looking at, instead of a beautiful small building with a lot of greenery, if you could provide landscaping that would somehow obscure not only the on-street parking that will be introduced right at our front doors, but also the parking lot. So it's really difficult for me to look at these plans, as I'm not an architect myself, but to look at these plans and understand what the greenery is going to look like near the north end of the property, on either side of the sidewalk. So my really only request here, other than expressing my exasperation, is to request that you consider putting in some kind of landscaping that provides some kind of screening at a low level as well as at a high level. So meaning some kind of shrubs that would obscure some of the parking and activity that will happen at the first level, but also aspen trees or other trees that could possibly obscure some of the activity from the higher levels, as we have 2 stories, 3 stories in our building as well. That concludes my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Appreciate it. Are there any additional comments online? Nope. Or in the chambers? All right, at this time, I will close the public comment portion of this agenda item, and we will move on to commissioner comments. Would you mind putting?
I was gonna ask you if we could take a quick break, bathroom break, what, 2 minutes?
Yeah, if we want to take a 5-minute recess, we'll resume at 6:37. And then go to discussion items.
Thank you, Kelsey.
All right, we're gonna resume tonight's Town of Frisco Planning Commission meeting. Before we get to commissioner comments, Emily's gonna address a couple of the questions that were asked.
All right, thanks, Kelsey. I'll just start. I kind of created a list, so I'll go down from there. First question we heard was about or comment, I guess, less of a question, but I'll address it. Concerns with the short notice. Our code requires 14 days prior to planning commission meeting. There, as with major site plans, there are sketch levels and final level. Sketch was back in August, as you all are aware. The same noticing process happened during that time as with final. We do keep all of those plans available on our website to review in the meantime. And that's the process that happens with major site plans. So noticing is, I hear short notice, but that is what is required. As far as changes to Galena, all of those changes are within the public right of way. There's about a 13-foot difference from what is there now. With the change in the road, that will come with drainage facilities and infrastructure to help improve that roadway and accommodate for those parking spaces as well. Some of the concerns about parking and overflow parking, the town has recently actually amped up enforcement on parking within the right of way and parking overnight. And tickets are being issued for non-compliance. Additionally, with the parking management plan that was provided, that includes signage specific to those spots. Currently, there is a spot on 3rd Avenue that has the same signage that would be implemented on those overnight parking spaces on Galena. With the traffic study, I hear the question of what will happen when that intersection gets reevaluated. It's hard to have a direct answer without knowing what the impact is of that. Definitely something that would require review and analysis, and what type of improvements or changes that could be made to improve that intersection is hard to say without knowing if there is an impact. So part of that is why it was added as a condition. I'll let the planning commission discuss how they want to address that.
Can I ask a question then for clarity purposes? Like, I mean, we have to live in reality. I mean, we can get paper in front of us, but how is the town comfortable with a traffic study that doesn't include the main way they're gonna go in and out? Like, to me, it's like an incomplete application without the traffic study, including the exact intersection that they're gonna use, and we all know they're gonna use. They're not gonna go up 2 blocks to Fourth Avenue to go to the stop sign, where it's like, if we knew it was there and there were issues, I mean, I think very easily you could put a 4-way stop sign in there. But to me, I'm just trying to understand how you felt this was a complete traffic study without the main intersection being included in it.
So, good question. I would say it comes down to, and I don't wanna pin anything on Public Works who does the review of the traffic study. They've had staff turnovers also over the last few weeks. So I think it potentially could have been just an oversight on staff reviewing it as they've had turnover. By having if the planning commission has it as a condition as suggested, if that traffic study that gets modified and it shows that improvements should be or are required for that intersection, the town would move forward and probably, and that would be a modification that we would, through the code, bring back to the planning commission so that they were aware that it triggered those road improvements. It also being a potentially town project with town involvement, we'd have to, as a town, analyze the cost of those improvements and how we would budget and actually construct them if it comes out. I would say the clear answer is if a traffic study said an improvement is needed at that intersection, we're not gonna, if it's clear that we need to make traffic improvements for a development that we are involved in.
It just seems like, I know that you're the applicant, but it's like, we have a zoning code. If another applicant came to us that was not the town of Frisco and they had an incomplete traffic study, to me, that's an incomplete application. And not knowing what the recourse is, we just don't have all the information in front of us, in my opinion, with excluding the most important intersection of this project.
And I can't speak to the people who reviewed that. So, sorry.
All right, well, we'll get on to discussion.
I have a few more items.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And then as discussed, or as Katie mentioned, we can definitely let Scattered Pines condos to the north know if, when timing occurs. I would suggest signing up for media releases with the town of Frisco. We have a pretty great marketing team and they do a good job at releasing timely information. But just as an aside. And then I have that comment about the landscaping. We can definitely consider landscaping within the public right of way. That was part of, at least on the north side of the parking lot approved on the site, or on the site plan, why Public Works was comfortable issuing a revocable license agreement for the additional trees to help with the screening. So I will definitely take that comment and give that to more staff to consider. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Emily. Ira, your thoughts?
My
comments,
summary comments here.
Summaries, everything you want to tell us.
So, as I've said, I'm really excited to see this project, and 101 West Main come to fruition for the needs of the town as a whole and the community, not just the town, we're talking about the community. I would say that change is always difficult, and the people that live in that vicinity have been living with a ghost of a building. That building is basically inactive, and it's going to change. But I found over the course of time, we're talking now about sticks and bricks and mortar. People are going to live in those buildings, and you may find your favorite waiter is in that building, or your favorite physical physician's assistant or an EMT is living there. I mean, these are gonna be real people that are gonna make our community better for everyone. And that's kind of the oversight when you're planning something. I mean, I've been involved in seeing construction, and it's change is difficult. I do not put that aside. But the fact that you have an opportunity here to have some really great people make our town better, where restaurants can be open more days, where you're gonna get quicker service, you might find carpenters where you never could find one before. I mean, it's just, change is difficult. And so I'm sympathetic on that part, but once you get to the other side, it's been worth it. It's really been worth it. And not to minimize the project, this is a major project. And a project like this doesn't get undertaken with a very big profit motive. And this is not a profit-driven project. There's no windfall here. There's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. This is being built for utilitarian purposes to make our town a better place and an easier place to live. So for those reasons, I am in support. I think we've had some very fruitful conversation. I think we're going to be very careful when we see traffic studies in the future. And that's really my comments. And I wish everybody that we have a successful project here on all sides. Thank you.
Candace?
I think you're going that was very inspirational.
I know, it's like,
I
ooh,
Yeah, like I've got
follow
one
through.
Oh, no.
I got a couple comments from like an engineering type perspective. I totally agree with Kelsey. 6th of Main is important, and I would just recommend to the town. Looking on the other side of Main Street at 6th Avenue, there's more construction. So I think that's really something that needs to be evaluated, not only for this project, but just kind of holistically with the development going on. And I think we can definitely, I would say, a conditional approval on this pending that, and the fact that the town is the applicant and the town would be implementing traffic solutions. I kind of trust what you guys do. I don't necessarily think we would change anything. But the other piece of this is the just lost my train of thought. I don't know where that was going. Maybe we got to a different one. Just looking at the existing site, it looks like it's kind of a low point, and I think there were some comments in the drainage or in the engineering review about drainage and low point. So I think that's something, oh, I know, the other one came back. Obviously, Public Works is looking at that, so I think that's on the applicant and the town to kind of sort through, but it's definitely something just in looking at the existing grading to be cognizant of. The second piece of it that I forgot is that realignment of Galena is, again, not the purview of any commission to decide, but kind of does affect a lot of the things around here and how the final site looks. So knowing that we haven't really seen it and we're going a little bit blind on that piece of this development. I think from out of curiosity, it'd be good for us to just see it again. I don't know that we need to like make any sort of approval. I don't know how all of this works, but I think I'd be interested to see the plans again once that program alignment is settled. The last one is very small, just looking at the corner where the 288 ramps are, just look at the turn radius for cars in there. It looks kind of tight, especially if we're making Galena smaller. We just want to make sure that we're getting trucks through there and not driving over the gates. And then way less inspirational than Ira, but I'll just repeat. Totally agree that this is really important for the community and appreciate all the hard work. And last comment, I'm an engineer, not a designer, but I think that those 3D drawings like really helped with the repetition, made me feel better, like the 3D view person. So, thanks for sharing that. That's it. Jessica?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we've seen this, I guess, August and been talked about before then, and I know everybody's worked really hard on that. And so, yeah, a lot of the questions we had, it's not to proposal, anything that you brought to us, it's really just to make sure that we're holding affordable housing to the same standards that we are for any development that comes in, any market rate housing. And yeah, I think it's precedent setting in a lot of really positive ways. And I do hope that, all those kinks that need to be worked out will be worked out, that we're not getting into a situation where cars are being parked overnight. So I just encourage you to be really prudent about that. And I have no doubt neighbors across the way will also be prudent about that as well. And to the neighbors across the way, the tone of the memo that you gave us was really nice. Like I've worked in local government for over a decade, and so I get where you've definitely established where you were coming from, but also understand that this is what will be built on this site and it is for the good of the community. So appreciate that collaborative tone, and moving forward with that. So I do think that it'd be worth us discussing a condition about the parking study, and I'm not sure exactly how we would craft that, but it's basically saying that, whatever the parking study finds, the applicant and in, collaboration with the town shall be responsible for those recommendations or whatever would be most appropriate. We can discuss that, but I would be for discussing a condition about that. Thanks.
April?
So I'm a big fan of this project, as most people here. I think it's going to be good for the community as well. From a personal perspective, I live on Granite, which is a very busy street, and I've been working with this team here on separate redesign for Granite Street. And I just want to urge the residents to stay very involved and keep the communication going, because they will work with you and they will listen. And I agree with the whole traffic scenario. That was one of the first questions that I had as well. I would be up for approving this plan with whatever condition we need to put in place to handle those, along with the other items that Emily had identified. That's it for me.
Thank you, April. Lena?
Thank you. So, yeah, so what everybody said, especially Ira, very well said about the need for this type of housing in the community. We all know that. I'll tell you guys that it's really hard to hear, I support workforce housing, but because we need it where we can put it. And in fact, this location, I think, is an excellent location for this type of housing. It's in a walkable location. It's near Main Street. It's within 1 block of transit. I mean, I can't think of a better spot to put some high density workforce housing in Frisco. So, and then I'm 100% in support. I would like to add a condition around the traffic study, and should there be any recommended improvement at that intersection, that be completed as part of the project. I certainly think we can add a condition to that. I don't feel strongly about the condition on the dumpster enclosure elevations. We can leave it in there, we can take it out. I don't think it matters too much. Did you want us to talk about some of the other things that we're up to planning commission? Do you mind putting those up if you have them handy?
Yes.
Also, what Emily said, you guys, this was noticed 3 times. It was before us at sketch plan twice, and this is, so when you see those postcards, just that's us trying to get your attention. And I would say sign up for the media newsletters and releases, because it really is helpful to stay on top of what's going on with the town.
I had already started typing on here. I can definitely modify this.
What, did we have to weigh in on the things that were underlying the building articulation and?
To bonus density and bulk plane.
Yeah, the recommended findings in the staff report.
Yeah, the part in the staff report that was underlined for our consideration.
I thought that was that page that just a different page.
Those are the conditions.
Let me just one moment.
Well, do
So-
we feel like snow storage is being met, the facade standards are being met, like these items of the code, like
Right.
are we meeting the spirit of the code?
So this first one is general conformance with the community plan. For
So
density,
whether it detracts from the character of the neighborhood, I don't think it does.
No, I'm good.
The building facade.
Building facade in my mind is fine. The encroachments in the bulk plane, I don't have an issue
Well,
with.
we just hear the bulk plane encroachment decreased.
Yeah, and it decreased.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
And then snow storage.
yes, snow storage, I'm actually a little torn on. I would like to hear everybody's feedback on that, whether.
I think it's shown on the plan. I do have concerns in reality, but it's like I have so many concerns about some of the parking diagrams that are shown on plans that we also approve, and that's just why I kind of have emphasized that if it's not working, that the developer that manages the whole site and the town will come to some type of way to make it work.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Okay. Yeah, so beyond that, everything that we talked about, I fully support the project. Oh, and to the point around the intersection being busy, I mean, I literally live right next door and I have to make a left-hand turn onto Main from 7th or 6th every day. And yes, sometimes you wait a minute, but it's not that bad, you guys. Like, it really isn't that bad. So those are my comments.
Any additional comments?
Can I add one suggested condition to add, and it's only due to having plans provided tonight that we don't have in our files upstairs. It would be great if the planning commission could add a condition stating a complete and updated plan set shall be submitted to the planning division prior to submittal of. So we can ensure that we have complete updated set in our files. Perfect.
So my comments are, thank you. I think this is a phenomenal project. I couldn't agree with the heartstring comments anymore, that this is something we need, that it is the restaurateur, your favorite waiter. My concerns are that we are elected to hold the oath of the code. And I have concerns about this meeting the code and that we're getting blurred with the needs and the wants and doesn't meet the code. I think duplicity is very prevalent here. I don't think this is something that would cause, that big of a disruption to correct. I don't feel that it meets the code there. I have concerns about the snow storage, where I felt like we've made a lot of huge code changes to make this work. And if affordable housing falls under its own code, maybe that's what it needs to do, but does it fall under the town of Frisco's code? I have concerns, and that it's incomplete. I think I'm the only one that feels that way, but I want it voiced for the record and for the people who took the time to come out tonight, that I think it is irresponsible to say there isn't gonna be traffic problems just because we live on the street, we operate on the street. There's 54 units coming in that will change the street. We're actually physically changing the street. So, whether my opinion on that holds any weight, that is how I feel, that it is an incomplete application at this time, and that it does hold duplicity and not meet the facade standards. If a condition can be placed that says, these are the steps that are taken on the traffic study. But I certainly think that we're kind of missing the code a little bit just on paper, but I think that your efforts have been phenomenal. I'm very excited for these two projects. It's an enormous need that takes too long and gets more expensive each year. But I do personally feel that it's not quite meeting the spirit of the code. If anybody has any other comments, motions, let's entertain them.
I guess a discussion on the facade and maybe a clarification from staff. Is it repetition within one facade or is it duplicity between one
Duplicity
facade?
between units.
Duplicity between units, not like one facade and the other facade?
Yeah, the facade articulation. So there's a few different sections that relate with facade, so it's under the subsection of facade, but there's building articulation, duplication between units, and materials. Is how it's outlined in the code.
It's facade standards. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, I guess on that point, Kelsey, I think you spoke really well, and articulated some of those concerns, and personally, I could agree with kind of the facade one, if the rest of the commission felt like it was worth, going down a condition route that we could see a little more.
I just feel like we're getting a little sidetracked with the need, and it is absolutely a need, but like, does it meet the code? And we have to hold, even if in reality, we know it isn't gonna work that way, if the code says it works that way, that is our job to say it meets the code. Where I think that, the players here all know how we operate, have projects that aren't affordable and would immediately fix that facade standard. And I get the monetary restraints, but our code is our code. And it's not saying this project is not gonna happen, let's kill it. It's just, how can we tweak it? How can we make it work to meet the code? I mean, the reality is there is gonna be a huge difference in your view corridor for the neighbors. That's the reality of Frisco in general. And I think those kind of issues kind of fizzle out with that. Yes, once it comes to fruition, you've got great new neighbors, there's vitality brought to your community. But going back to what our privy is here is the code in the building and not what the building is gonna hold.
I mean, the thing is, like, I feel strongly about it when you're looking at like a mixed use or commercial building, where you're, but when you're talking about a residential building, especially like a 3-story multifamily residential building.
But
I
it
don't
still
know.
has to meet the code.
But
All
what
buildings have to meet
what
the.
does this duplicate building design prohibited? Is that the one, Emily?
So the exact language here is where a project contains 2 or more buildings or units, not identical units. The building design shall provide architectural relief from the duplication of buildings and units by utilizing a variety of windows, decks, balconies, or exterior facade composition.
And I think that's it, this has it.
Where I feel the composition to me is 2 materials, like the corners look great, all of that, but when you're looking straight on the building, I see like 3 materials and it doesn't vary, it doesn't.
The corners are different. There's different type colors of the canopies. The main entrance is
I
clearly
mean,
the
you
main
don't have to
entrance.
agree with.
Window,
I
there's
just-
windows. I mean, I'm just saying, like, those architectural standards are so hard because they're subjective and in some ways they're subjective, and it's just really hard to have a black and white. I don't know.
I agree that it's subjective, and I think like everyone, it's hard, the beauties and the holder, but I agree with you, Kelsey, that our job is to look at the code, and I think because this one is subjective, where my mind went was the comment that we can change it, but like that changes the financial implications of an affordable housing project funded by the town. That, in my personal opinion, like, it looks fine, but I think this is where we have to like
Not take precedence or different treatment for one project
Right.
over the other based on who's gonna occupy it. And what the monetary restrictions are, because I think you could change. Like, and it makes me uncomfortable that we don't know one of the materials. That is, it may be this, to me is like, well, put a feather in the wind and hope it flies in the right direction. I mean, we have to put some teeth into these things or it gets built and we're like, ugh. Wish we didn't do that, wish we knew that. And you can't undo those things past these meetings, there's administrative corrections and that, but. And I seem to be the only one that's hung up on this, so, that's not, but I certainly think there's some things missing here that aren't meeting the code.
Well, I think your point's well taken. I know I made a point about the repetition of it. But on the applicant side, there is an attempt to not be completely repetitive. I mean, because I look at it from both sides. We know the corners are strong, that they stand. And then you do seem that the triple gable elevation, but even on those elevations, they move the stone around, they move the different stuff around, and there is articulation back and forth. And it is a subjective or interpretive paragraph or section. So, for lack of a better word, I would interpret it as satisfactory. I'm not giving it an excellent. I'm gonna give it a satisfactory, pass, fail. I mean, that's how some of us went to school. So I would interpret it as a pass. Sorry.
It's not my project.
Okay.
I feel though, is there more comments in the snow storage also? Because a couple of you did bring up snow storage.
I think it's the same situation, right? It's like it meets code, but we know that it may not practically work. But we don't know until we get there and the building's built and you go through
Yeah.
that process, right?
You know, I'll go back to that point that it's single ownership. And if it's not working, and it's not working for the tenants, we have dump trucks. They can cart it away. And if it's not working for them, they're gonna spend those few $100s, those thousands of dollars, and they're gonna get rid of the snow.
So who's paying for it though? If we're trying to keep everything affordable and.
Well,
I mean-
it's gonna have to come out of their budget. I mean, I don't know that they have to budget it in advance because they're having snow storage that meets code. And, you know, the winters are unpredictable, to say the least.
Well, I guess, any other comments or does somebody have a motion?
You gonna read it?
Yeah, I am happy to make the motion. Are we, do we?
Right up the.
Can we talk about that one?
Yeah, I was
condition?
gonna say, the condition that I would propose is the following. That any recommended improvement resulting from the revision of the traffic study be implemented and completed as part of the project.
I guess I don't read traffic studies enough to know what any recommended condition could entail.
Well, so they amended the
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, they amended it to involve that one intersection, so any improvement would be to that one intersection, because there's no other recommendations for improvements.
And that improvement would come from Public Works, right?
No, it's
I mean,
something
people-
that's recommended in the traffic study. To mitigate the impacts of the traffic and improvement to the intersection.
Okay.
They usually-
I'm in favor.
Yeah, I think it's, they'll look at the added traffic would be added to the level of service, maybe those stops in. But I
Yeah.
think this is where we defer to the engineer's judgment.
Right, so. I guess it's sort of memorializing, like anything that happens, we want it acknowledged.
Mhm.
Acknowledged or actually like remediated and.
Well, I'm saying be implemented and completed, but not, not knowing.
Prior to certificate of occupancy for the building.
It
Prior
needs to have
to-
something that
concurrent with-
has.
Concurrent with,
Yeah, prior
This
to,
is all under the applicant shall satisfy Public Works and the town engineer.
I would recommend a separate condition.
Well, would this too be before they got their building permits? They'd have to submit this new traffic study per the.
I would recommend that any change to the traffic study should be done prior to building permit submittal.
I think we need to put
Prior
a
to building
timeline in it
Yeah.
and then
But then,
implication or correction needs to be done before CO. Like they have to have a new traffic study before building permit and then
A resolution plan to deal with. the stuff.
resolution and completion by CO to get their CO.
does that work in terms of Town of Frisco's timeline? That makes logical sense.
I do think so. The applicant is looking to apply for financing, and so that will be shown up when whoever they talk to get financing will see these conditions. And then they'll also know that that has to be done, so the applicant will be wanting to get that traffic study done sooner rather than later to show that it's addressed in order for financing requirements.
okay, and can we talk about condition number 5? Is there any value in keeping that condition on? No.
There is not, since Emily reviewed and everything.
Does
came in.
anybody have an issue with deleting that condition?
Delete.
Delete. Okay, so we are in agreement on 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, which is now 5, and 7, which is now 6.
And then you'll add 8, if you don't mind, for the completed updated plan set.
Right.
That's right. Thank you, Katie.
And I used that. As I read before, I give it down to type out later. Okay.
Then I will make a motion with respect to file number MHJ-23-0007.
I move that the recommended findings set forth in the March 21st, 2020.
I've updated the motion to include the conditions from tonight.
I'll read from.
Sorry.
With respect to file number MAJ 23-0007, I move that the recommended findings set forth in the March 21st, 2024 staff report be made, and that the recommended conditions set forth therein and discussed during the public hearing meeting on March 21st, 2024 be taken, and that the Planning Commission hereby approves the request for the major site plan application for the proposed 54-unit multifamily deed restricted residential development located at 602 Galena Street / lots 13 through 21, block 3, Frisco Town Site.
I'll second.
Emma, will you please take a vote?
Commissioner Connolly,
4, yes.
Commissioner Day. Yes. Commissioner Forsyth,
Yes.
Commissioner Lesnes,
Yes.
Commissioner Tain,
Yes.
Commissioner Withrow.
Yes. Well, we wish you all the best of luck. We hope you're good neighbors and you get right on getting this new traffic study updated, and we're excited to see this go forward. We know this is a huge need, and we're looking forward to it. And thank you to all of you that took the time this evening for your public input. It's much appreciated.
Before we leave, I will just put a plug in that the town is doing a comprehensive plan, which is a community vision where goals, action plans for where we want to go. And we'll be doing another reason to get on those kind of communication emails of what's going on in the town. We'll have a lot of stakeholder and public open house meetings, and we do want as many people in the community we can get to show up on traffic, roads, infrastructure, housing, you name it, is going in that plan. So please sign up for those so you can also come participate in our upcoming public input sessions. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Any staff updates?
Just a couple, because we haven't met for a while. April reminded me this actually, we haven't seen anything with Granite Street, the next, going up to 100% design plans for the complete street project. Due to,
I'll keep
realizing that we should try to get a grant and to get some funding assistance to get to 100%. So you might have seen, some of you, if you're on town alerts, the town currently has an RFP out for, to get a request in cost. And then they're going to be applying for a grant next week, actually, and trying to get some funding. I think we're doing the Main Street Live, I think that one. And we're applying for that. So even though there's also an RFP out right now for that project, it's going to be pushed back a bit. We can get some financial assistance. So not stalled, but should be stalled. Which is why.
Yeah, which Emily had said last time, it was like maybe 2025,
I think we're looking more
or do we
at
know
that.
yet?
Probably in the fall.
Yeah, I
If
mean-
we get the grant, then you can't sign a contract or contracts and with our city state. And yet, 2 to 3 months after they tell you you're awarded a grant, so it's a big delay, so you're not allowed to sign a contract with someone to start the work. And that's if we get it. If not, I think we'll pursue the project anyway, but it's hard to justify for our finance directors not trying to get grant assistance. So that's where that project is right now. And then next council meeting this Tuesday, March 26th. Emma is bringing forward a general discussion at a work session about Derek Sky certification, because we've been approached by a lot of community groups similar to how Breckenridge and other local jurisdictions have. We are right now proposing to town council that they support staff on doing a lot of education to explain to the community the importance of dark skies, and then potentially paying at one time $250 application fee, entering a pilot program, we get technical assistance, but not saying we're going to become dark certified yet. The reason I want planning commission involved in this is we also are curious if town council is going to direct us to start looking at some code amendments. The city of Aspen just recently did a lot of code amendments for the outdoor lighting. They're not going dark sky certified, but they made changes to get it closer to it. So if we're directed by council to look at our exterior light regs, we're obviously bringing that forward to planning commission for a discussion before we propose any changes.
Have they talked about putting like the Main Street lights on a timer?
That's part of what So we're kind of starting really easy with Council Tuesday. What do you think of this? Because we don't even really know what direction they want to say. If they want to pursue time and energy into it. And then it will come into, do you want to code changes? Do you want more than that? Or just leave it as it is, and educate the community and then work on things after the comprehensive plan is done? Where the kids go home from school and they tell their parents why it's good to have a dark sky, it's like that, get that education. So just wanted you aware, we're starting to see if we should be working on that, and then if we are going to directly to work on it, we obviously can do a work session with planning commission, because we want you heavily involved in if we want to do any code amendments to it.
Sorry, there's street light in Granite.
What's wrong with it?
It's too bright. It's like to do with the night sky.
Okay, and there's a street light out on Highway 9 and it's too dark.
All right, well, I'm gonna let you take care of all.
But I think to educate people, the town of Frisco should be the pioneer and starter and saying, hey, we turn our lights off at 10, could you do the same?
And that is what Aspen's doing. I mean, they really put in a lot more for dimming. Seasonal lights are only allowed for like 5 months of the year.
Which I love the fourth and main lights, but I do agree, like, they're super bright and they should probably go off around
Well,
10, like
and
quiet
it's not
hours.
for hearing different people, obviously, but a lot of the community, or certain members of the community are not happy with all of the outdoor decks, especially the upper levels, all have string lights and they leave them on for days or nights when they're in bed, and that's causing some people in the community to feel like they've lost some of their vision in the dark, or like dark sky. So just want you in the loop, we're looking at council to tell us if they want us to pursue anything, and then we'll be keeping you obviously fine, working with us.
On lighting, somebody had pointed out to me, like, our trees out here in front of town hall. Are those lights, the holiday lights, off now?
They just got taken down this week. Yeah, this week.
Yeah, well, because someone a month ago said, how come they're not up
I
anymore?
think they went down, yeah, I'm not positive.
Okay,
They
okay.
actually put them up. We'll have to all look when we.
Yeah, I'll take feedback on specific lights.
And then to let Public Works know on the street light. So that is just an update for you. And then, okay, so since the item tonight you made a vote on, we have no items to schedule for the meeting on April 4th. So we are going to go ahead and cancel the April 4th meeting. So you will have no planning commission meeting in 2 weeks. However, we're going to add a meeting in May for town council planning commission joint work session. This isn't been finalized with council, but I emailed today asking to get a joint work session on May 14th. Where staff is going to bring forward the housing plan, strategic plan we have going on, the first meeting with that consultant group. So that will kind of be an overview of where they're at, the initial focus group meetings they've had, the working groups, you'll get an update and then direction of where that's going. Yes, if you haven't started yet.
Okay, good.
You're okay.
I was like, what?
Nope, you haven't missed.
Okay.
This week, Emily and James have been ramping up all of the email contacts and finding them all. So I think we have about 80 we're contacting directly for the comp plan. And about 30 for the housing plan. Some of them will be 1-hour phone calls. And then those of you who are on the actual working groups, we're looking at 3 meetings over the course of the project. Haven't missed it yet. You'll be getting emails next week. So
Can we be remote for the work session? Because I know I'll be out of town that day.
it's a good point. Yes, we should make them remote because that may be the case for other. For the.
Wait, the work session, yes.
Those are.
Okay.
Sorry, we remote. Yes.
Hybrid,
And we'll
yeah.
finalize that for you, but I just wanted to give you a heads up there. I'm hoping to get that joint work session going for both projects that day.
What time would that be approximately?
So right, somewhere time between, in theory, between 4 and 6:30. To be honest, the agenda already is kind of full and I have to see if they'll show me some things. I don't, because we have consultants coming, I like it at the beginning, so we're not paying consultants to sit around listening to other conversations. Which is also why I have to find this date, but while we're here and you don't have the next meeting, know you are gonna have an extra one in May that we'll ask you to participate in. And then last update for the group is Ira, Kelsey, and April, thank you. All 3 want to remain on the planning commission. Their terms all end this term, which is, they follow council terms. And so I just got feedback this week that the council's plan is to put a reappointment of all three of you on the consent agenda at town council. I don't have a date, but that basically means it should hopefully just be a vote moving everything on the consent agenda without a discussion. It can get pulled for discussion, but the initial feel and direction I was given is that it sounds like you three are going to be reappointed through a consent agenda by town council. So I'll let you know.
Lucky. We have to re-interview.
That was it for updates.
Motion to adjourn, or is there any questions for staff?
Just Foots Rest.
And these fences that nothing are happening, like Centura and Foots Rest and
Marketplace, whatever that thing is.
Winter Plaza.
Winter Plaza.
That one actually is court.
It's closing April 2nd.
We got, yes, they had stipulations that the outstanding building permit get addressed by the current owner's architect. And those revisions were submitted last night and are currently under review in the building division. So we're hoping that they meet all code requirements, because if that could delay closing, but that one's on track to get developed still to start this spring.
Why can't we move Centura's fence? I just don't get why.
I know.
Their update is that it is on my calendar, I think it's April 17th, that they expire from planning on June 17th. So on April 17th, I'm giving them a 2-month heads up, your planning approval will be expiring. And at that time, the site needs to go back to natural condition if you haven't submitted a building permit there. So I do have a calendar ticker. On my
Okay.
calendar.
I just can't stand it. I'm like, I'm gonna take it down.
You can do that. Don't tell me.
In the middle of the night, you'll just show up to a nice little pile of fence.
So I would say
And be like, pretty happy.
I'll call you guys. I'll
Yeah.
call you.
Yeah.
Your
What
boss-
What does
Yeah,
that mean,
dark side eye.
return to natural condition? They got a grade, get rid of all the demo, get it,
Probably just
okay.
it's hard. But we haven't ran into that because in the past, that had granted extensions to those things. So this, I think, will be maybe the first time we're actually saying, hey, you're expiring in 2 months, what's your plan here? And maybe they'll submit a building permit tomorrow. I don't know.
But that wouldn't come to us if they asked for an extension or anything? No, okay.
They already
Foots?
approved it.
Foots?
No.
No update on Foots? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.